Hi, my name is Sakumzi Langa. I would like to share with you my inspirational story. This is a story about perseverance, hope, and favor from the Almighty. Life comes with challenges. It doesn't matter where you come from. If you persevere, you will pull through. I hope this video inspires you to take action and change your circumstances for the better. Thank you and God bless.
A very good evening, everybody, and it's so good to see that everyone's here. Without hope, without water, you can only last up to 102 days. Without food, you can last up to 92 days. Without hope, you can't last a single day. And that's the goal of my speech today. It is to tell you guys, or it is to inspire hope, that no matter where you come from, no matter where your background, no matter how disabled you are, life is there for you to take. Now, if I'm at the right place, everyone here came here because they wanted to hear how I transcended from my orphanage age when I was 8 years old to the person that I am right now. And in doing that, I've decided to split my talk into 3 legs. The first one being 1997 to 1999, the other leg being 2000 to 2010, and I call that part the fight back. And the last part that I'll speak on is between 2010 and 2014, and that part I call reaping off the benefits of my success. Guys, it was in 1997. I still remember the day. I was sleeping in a double bed with 3 of my sisters. So it's one double bed, and there's 4 of us sleeping on it. When I heard movements inside our room, I wondered what was going on, and I was only 6 at the time, in 1997. So I woke up and I had a look. I was half awake, so I couldn't question what was going on. I saw that my mother was packing her clothes and she was leaving. Mind you, I'm half awake. I don't want to ask what she's doing. I'm just looking at her action and what she's doing. And my father on the other side of the bed is sleeping with 4 of my siblings as well. So I looked at my mother, she packed the stuff and she left. And up until today, guys, she has never came back. My mother abandoned me in 1997 and she has never made any contact to come back. When my sisters woke up in the morning, everyone started looking around for my mother. They asked where my mother was. And I wish I could tell them where my mother was, but I couldn't. I thought all of what was happening during the night was a big bad dream. It's unfortunate, really, that it keeps on coming, hunting me day in and day out. I keep on seeing this person who's leaving the house midnight. So that was it then. We're left with one father. By the way, my father is Mozambican. So when he came to South Africa in the 80s, he only came alone. We don't know he's part of the family. And he was 30 years older than my mother. So he was old at the time, and was suffering from stroke. He suffered from a deadly stroke, and he passed away a year later. Then in 1998, by the true definition of the word, one would have easily said we are orphans, because we didn't have a mother, and we didn't have a father. And those really, I think, were the difficult times of my life. The only fortunate thing about it was that I was the 7th born of a family of 8. So I didn't have to worry about food. My big brother was worried about that. The only thing I had to do was to eat and sleep and cry for food, and then they would go around asking for food. So one thing my sisters would do is that they'd go hunt around for food, then they'd come back and give it to us. So I was the 7th born. I was amongst the 2 of the youngest, in other words. So they'd give us food, and then I would eat. If myself and my little brother are full, then we'd give it to my youngest sister, who's 1 year older than me. So the instruction big brother and big sister would give us is that you are the 2 little ones, eat. When you guys are full, you can give to your older sister. And my little brother didn't seem to get the rationale behind this, that we must eat, Not when we are full, but when we are at least stable, we must give over to my little sister. And my little brother was adamant, saying that no, big sister said we must eat when we are full, then we can pass it over. And I could see my sister losing weight, like my sister was just 1 year older than me, losing weight. So I decided to call my little brother outside when we were in the playground and said, look man, let's serve 5 or 3 spoons and then pass the plate over to my big sister. Then that's what we did. That's how we maintained her, because she was losing weight right before my eyes. So guys, I tell you, I termed that part of my life the difficult times, and I want you guys to keep that in mind as I proceed with this speech, is that my father was Mozambican, so we could not make any contact with his family. Up to now, I don't know anyone from my father's family. Then my mother, who had abandoned us, also ran away from her home, so we couldn't go back to my mother's home and sort of want food. So we were just 8 little piglets left with no one else to help. Families around tried to help us. There was a family called the Mabandla family that really provided us food, that really provided us with clothes at difficult times, and I'm forever grateful to them. I'm reminded of a Christmas we had in 1999 where we didn't have Christmas clothes like other children. So other children pitched up in nice pimped clothes, and I pitched up in a white shirt. The big guys in my group of friends when I was 7 years said, dude, we're all wearing new clothes. You know that shirt is not new. Your sister washed it for you and you are here to fool us. But that's something I swallowed in as a man. I told myself that I don't have parents. No one is earning a grant at my house. My brother at that time had just failed his grade 10. So that's like my older brother in the family. He had failed grade 10. So at that point, it seemed like everything was starting to close in, like the world was against me. But I tell you what, guys, Utadbawa Umakumalo initiated a move for us to go to SOS Children's Villages because the situation was really dire. And my sisters, it's too bad I keep on referring to them because I remember them losing weight in a space of 8 months because we didn't have anything to eat, anything to wear, and no place to sleep at. There was 8 of us sharing a 2-roomed flat. So we moved to SOS Children's Villages. And guys, it is at this point where I must say that that was the blessing in my life. Had it not been for SOS Children's Villages, I wouldn't be speaking with you guys today. So when we got to SOS Children's Villages in Tata, there was about 150 children there. So even though I was coming from a family of 8, which I thought was big, 150 is something immensely bigger than the family of 8. But I must say nonetheless that I was never lonely. The community there was vibrant. You had kids around, and whenever you needed support, you were always guaranteed to get it. So when we got to SOS, guys, the village director there, Mr. Douglas Reed, he called me to his office. He was a very tall oak who knelt before me and said, Sakumzi, I understand that you come from a very difficult childhood, and the only thing that will ever rescue you from that childhood is education. I tell you guys, from that day, I never started studying. It's because when I was growing up in the orphanage home, I was often told, when I was in my rurals, I thought that was the end of my life. I didn't think that there was a way out, but once someone told me that there is actually a way out of this situation, and that's education. And in 1999 or 2000, you can guess how important it was, because it was coming from a white person saying, there is a way out. So I really believed what he was saying. I studied very hard. I was in grade 2 at the time. I told myself that, okay, I found a formula, I found a winning formula. I can actually stop suffering. There's a way I can actually divert from the poor life that I've had since my childhood. So I started studying. The next day, I remember, we were going for interviews. When I left my rural area, I had passed my grade 2. So in the orphanage, I was going to get there and do my grade 3. SOS was in a suburb area. So if you come from a rural setting, you must go through interviews before you make it to the next grade that you initially meant to do. So when I got there, I was in a queue with other children that were of my same age group. They were speaking English very fluent. I didn't understand a single English word at the time. And the guys would get inside the principal's office, then rush off to grade 3, rush off to grade 3. So at some point, I was starting to see that, okay, that's where I'm going to go after my interview as well. I'm going to get inside here, then I'm going to rush off that side. So I got inside the office. There was a lady called Miss Dinare. May her soul rest in peace. She asked me, "What is your name?" I looked at her. She said, "What is your surname?" I continued looking at her. Then she wrote a note. Then she said I must give it to my SOS mother, who was accompanying me at the time. So I quickly went out. I gave my SOS mother the note, and I rushed to grade 3. She had to call me. She had to call me because she called me when I was inside grade 3 and said, "Sakumzi, the principal said you failed the interview. You didn't know what is your name." I couldn't believe that I was outdone like that. I couldn't believe that I was going to be delayed for the entire year of my life because I didn't know what is your name. When, by the way, I come from a rural background where we were taught English in Xhosa. Anyway, the time I spent, guys, in SOS was really the distinguishing time of my life. The stigma, I must tell you guys that it was immense. I mean, to say that you come from an orphanage home, other people looked at you in another light. I remember one time where we were playing outside SOS Children's Villages. So we're playing with dogs in the neighborhood. So it's a house that's not part of our SOS. So we're just throwing stones in that yard. And then it appeared that the dog was barking quite irritably inside the house. So one of the ladies comes out and starts shouting, "Go away, don't you bloody orphans have anything better to do?" So there was 3 of us, and we were between the age of 9 and 10. And we didn't know what an orphan was at the time. Even the guys that were speaking English very fluently in the interview line didn't seem to understand the word. Yeah, so we argued amongst ourselves what an orphan is, what could it be, till we decided amongst ourselves that, okay, let's go to the village director of the SOS and ask him what an orphan is. So we went to Mr. Mabandla, the then village director of the time, and we asked him, "Excuse us, sir, what is an orphan?" I remember the smile on his face when we got inside the office and the stale expression on his face when he heard us that we were asking him about what an orphan was. Then he looked at us, and all of a sudden he jumped and he took a magazine that was full of SOS children that were participating in dance, sport, and swimming. And he said, "You see this child singing? She's an orphan. This one also an orphan. You see, all orphans are excited." Then before we knew it, we were already fixed into the magazine. We had forgotten what we were here for. Then we just took the magazines and ran away. And I tell you what, guys, I still can't understand why Mr. Mabanda didn't tell us that we are orphans. I can't understand why he didn't give us the true definition of the word orphan at the age of 9 and 10. You guys are welcome to explain to me why he didn't, that we have to be told by strangers that we are orphan. So guys, I tell you, after Mr. Douglas told me that education is the only thing that's going to rescue me from this misery, I studied very hard. Whenever I had the time, I would study. So in my grade 6 class, I came out position 3, and I asked people, how can I become better? How can I graduate? How can I pass top of my class? And the guys that always got better marks than me in my primary school told me that, no, actually, we are sleeping at 9 o'clock. And at the orphanage, the sleeping time was 8:30, so you had to sleep after generations. So I went back to my house. I started studying between 7 and 8:30. And then after generations, 8:30, the mother would switch off the light and say everyone must go to sleep. Okay, I tried to do this for the entire grade 6, and I still got position 3 in my class. In grade 7, I told myself that no way, I can pass my grade 7 and be the top student in this class, in the entire school, only if I were to break the rules. And I urge you guys today that you must break the rules. Don't be afraid to break rules. Other rules are only there to contain you. So I told myself that, okay, by the way, break the rules, not the law. Okay, so I went home, I started from 7, and I was studying, and I was studying, and I was studying. Then when the mother at the orphanage switched off the lights, I told them that, excuse me, I'm over here. Then she came over, and so she switched the light on, and she said, Sakumzi, but what are you doing? It's at night. I told her that, Mama, there's no way I'm gonna graduate. There's no way I'm gonna pass top of my class if I'm sleeping at 8:30. I have to sleep at 10, I have to sleep at 11, so that I get the top students awards during for my primary school. At that point, she let the light on and she went to sleep. Every day, guys, I was studying. In my grade 7, I studied from 7 when I came back after supper till 11 o'clock, 7 till 11, 7 till 11. And guess what? For my grade 7, I was the top student in my entire primary school. But everything was well, guys, because perhaps I didn't tell you this at the beginning, but for the primary school, I did it inside the orphanage home. So the primary school was inside SOS. So we were guarded. Other people were even saying that we were treated like eggs because we were inside the orphanage home. So it came the time where one had to go outside, where they had to go to high schools, and high schools were outside. They were in the townships, they were in the suburbs. So no one knew you were from SOS. No one cared that you were an orphan. In the primary school inside SOS, if someone had called you an orphan, you'd easily go report them to the director, and the teacher would be fired. But once you get to the high school, guys, no one cares that you're an orphan, and people really didn't treat us really well. Most of my brothers that were ahead of me academically, they went to the high schools and they quickly got excluded. Some of them for bad behaving, some of them for drug usage, alcohol consumption, and maybe even fighting inside the school. So many schools, by the time I was doing my grade 7, were saying that we've had it with SOS children. We don't want any child from SOS in our schools. So it was difficult for me at the time to get a good school. But there was one school that seemed to make it clear in Mthatha, and it's one of the biggest schools. It's called Zingisa Comprehensive High School. They said that we don't want a child from SOS Children's Villages because you guys are bad behaviors. At that time, I wasn't sure which school to go to. But once I heard that, I told myself that, okay, I'm going to fight that head on. I'm going to go to that school, and I want to see them reject my application whilst I qualify academically. So I applied to Zingisa Comprehensive High School. Unfortunately, no one rejected my application. So perhaps the whole statement was a rumor or it was fallacious. So I must say, though, that even though I was in Zingisa, I still felt some discrimination. Other teachers would throw words like, you are an orphan, you're going to fail like everybody else. What were you expecting from this guy? But I knew that the reason I'm in Zingisa, I wasn't there to please anyone. I was there to represent my orphanage. I was there to represent other orphanage homes that are around the world. I wanted to show people that orphans can actually live up to something. So I guess what happened in my grade 8, I was in the noisemakers list. First thing that happened when I got there, I was in the noisemakers list, and then the teacher called us up to the front, and she was hitting all the people that were noisemakers. Then when I got there, she was like, SOS, what were you expecting? She's like, everyone else, grade 9, it will be too long if he's still here by grade 10. Then he hit me, then I went to sit down, and I saw myself crying. And everyone in my class was like, but Sakumzi, it's 3 lectures, why are you crying? Not even girls are crying. They couldn't understand that it was the statement that she made that made me cry. I couldn't believe that I was continuously discriminated. I was continuously oppressed because people called me an orphan, and whenever they called me an orphan, I would cry and I would collapse. And there was no one I could report that to. So it was either I man up or I die. So one of the things then, in my grade 9, the same thing happened. I was playing chess in class. My friends know that I'm a very good chess player, let me just say. Yeah, so I was playing chess in class. The principal walked in on me and he suspended me for 2 days. And at that time, guys, I went home and I cried and I cried. And my SOS mother was saying, I'm a softie, why am I crying? And I think no one understood that my main objective, and I keep on repeating this, is to represent orphans and to show people that we are worth more than what people seem to stigmatize us with. So I cried the entire 2 days when I was home, till I was called back at school, and from that day I told myself that I'm not going to do anything wrong, I'm not going to be in a noisemakers list, I'm not going to play chess, I'm just going to continue being the good person that I am. So in my grade 9, guys, guess what happened? I got top student for mathematics in the entire school. And guys, believe it or not, it was at that point in my life where I saw that it's no longer about where you come from. When I got the top student in my grade 9, against people like Abu Peli, Sajing, Mesuli, and Beba, like big guys that were getting top marks all the time, I told myself that all these limitations, all these things about orphans and people looking at us badly, they're only in the head. Other people in school did not even know that I'm an orphan. So I reconciled inside myself and told myself that, okay, from now on, there's nothing I cannot achieve. The sky is the limit. I managed to get top position in mathematics. So the next year, grade 10, I continued. I pushed, guys, I pushed. But okay, I didn't get the top student in mathematics. I was position 4. Grade 11 of my high school, I applied to be the head prefect of my high school. And when I went back to SOS, and I told the village director at the time that I want to be the head prefect of Zingisa Comprehensive High School. And he reminded me that, remember, this is a school that previously didn't want you to go there. This is a school that excluded many people on the basis that they were coming from SOS. Do you really want to lead it? And I told him that this is something I want to do. It's something I've always went there to do, to shine and show them that there's something more, really, from a person who comes from SOS. So I applied, I prepared my speech, and I got 2/3 majority. So something like 80%. So guys, I must disclose that it was during my time as the head prefect at Zingisa, where I saw that in life, really, you are never the worst. Because when I was the president there, many students would come to me who are not eating anything on a daily basis and ask for funds. People would come to me that were previously abused and still ask for funds. People would come to me that had parents killed in front of them and seek my advice. So I accepted, and I told myself that I'm not the worst person to be in the world. My situation is not the worst. And I tell people everywhere I go that no matter if you think that the world is closing down on you, but you are not the worst, you are always better. Even if you got 40% in criminal law, you are better than someone who got 30%. And even if you are the person who got 30% in criminal law, you are better than someone who got 20%. Even if you got 20%, you are better than someone who's at home or someone who failed matric. And even if you are that person who failed matric, you are better than someone who's sick in hospital. So that's the mentality we should always have, that you are always better. But I must tell you guys that even though I was the president of my school in Zingisa, reminders of myself being an orphan or the fact that I grew up in an orphanage home would come. And in some cases, it was in instances where many people didn't have any intent to harm me. It would just come or just be reminded that I come from an orphanage home. I remember one time after my speeches on a Monday, because I spoke every Monday in my school, where Ms. Onono said, "Wow, Sakumzi, you're such a good speaker. Your parents must be so proud of you." Then I looked at her and I said, "Yes, they are very proud of me." But that was because I was past that point in my life. I was past I feel sorry for myself. I was past the point where I'm the worst person. I was past the point where I made excuses for my every failure. I told myself that I'm equal to everyone else, and there's nothing that can stop me from whatever I want to be in life. So my matric, I was studying, guys, for my matric. I studied very hard, and that was because I was amongst the very few people from my orphanage home to get to matric to start with. I must tell you guys that if I get my degree this year, I'll be the first person from SOS Mthatha to get a bachelor's degree. So I studied for my matric, I remember myself taking a blanket every day, going to study. I was not sleeping. I was studying. I invested a lot of my energy in studying, making sure that I passed my matric. And one of the motivations really for me studying very hard for my matric came from my maths teacher, who would say in a very funny way that, Sakumzi, the only certificate that you have is your birth certificate. So until you get your matric, then we're gonna speak. Yeah. So from that point, I also studied. I wanted to have my own qualification. I wanted to have something I can call my own as well. So I studied, and I passed my matric with an average of 82%, a distinction in maths and history. And I tell you what, guys, after matric, I've always knew that I wanted to pursue my LLB at Wits. I've always knew that I wanted to be a lawyer. I was unlike many students that were caught in between two roads as to what they would study, or their parents saying they must study medicine and they want to do drama. Yeah, so I knew that I always wanted to be a lawyer. My sisters were saying, Sakumzi, you've got 88% in straight maths, you've got 78% in accounting, go pursue actuarial science, go do accounting. But I made it clear to them that I've always wanted to be a lawyer. And perhaps it's one of the simplest reasons, and that is, I strongly feel that if you want to impact a society, if you want to govern a society, then you must put good laws in place. And one need only ask themselves one question: how did apartheid reign in South Africa? It was through laws. So I still believe that even with the current government, we just need very good laws that are anti-corruption to govern this society. So at my orphanage, there seemed to be this very same route amongst many people, and that was to go to college. That was to go to Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University, to go to Fort Hare. Once I got inside an administrator's office and I said, I want to go to university, Wits University, the guy stood up on his feet and he said, look here, we've had more people that are cleverer than you, so you're not going to tell us that you want to go to Wits. You must be very close to us, in an environment where we can easily support. And I said, but there are people that are in NMMU, they don't get support, and I want to do my LLB at Wits. At that point, I was getting calls from the 4 universities I had applied to. I beg not to mention. Yeah. The 4 universities that I applied to had already been calling me. I've always wanted to go to Wits, and I've never regretted that decision. So guys, I came to Wits University, and I was the only person I knew. Yeah, let me just say that. I was the only person I knew. I didn't have a brother, a sister, or anyone. So when I left Mthatha, when I left SOS for Wits University, I knew that it was either a make or break for me. I knew that at that point I couldn't expect any favors from anyone. I couldn't expect any handouts. If I drop it, then it breaks. So I studied very hard, guys. I remember one of my friends constantly reminds me that the only way he got to know me in my first year class was in a law of persons, where Dr. Ali Chikte kept on asking us questions, and I was answering all the questions till the entire class was quiet. And then Chikte says, dude, what do you do on weekends? Other students are partying, other students are playing soccer. Why do you know all the answers to the question? And I told him that I study. And at that point, I was taking my academics very seriously. I wanted to be the best person I could be. Mr. Douglas Reed had told me 10 years ago that the only thing that's going to rescue me from my misery is education. So I was studying very hard, guys. But came the dilemma. I was doing English literature at the time, and I was doing my I did first additional English in high school. So English literature is done by people that were doing home language English because the standard of their English is that high. But I did it nonetheless. And for my first test, Wits they say Wits will humble you, and I think it was at that point where I was humbled. Guys, I got 78% for my matric in English, so I got to Wits. I thought I was an English professor. And in English literature, I got 28%. I couldn't believe it, guys. I thought that doors were starting to open up for me, while all of a sudden, there's this barrier that put itself before me. So I couldn't believe it. I went to my room immediately after I saw that I got 28%, and I prayed to God. I said, God, now that it has already started, now that I've failed my first test, please let this be the last time. I cannot afford to fail again. Okay, so that was it. I wrote my second test, and I got 40%. I stood up back and I said, but God, to me it seemed like God wasn't seeing the situation. So I said, God, please help me pass English literature. The third test I wrote, I got 50%. And in the English department, there's what they call a DP. And we only had one test to write before the June, and they put the marks up. And they said that if I want to write June, I must get 70 in the test, the last test that we had to write. And my only question was, how am I going to get 70 when I got 28, 40, and 50? So I had already reconciled with the fact that I'm going to repeat English literature in the following year. But I worked hard nonetheless. I studied. I went to my tutor. She was staying in Houghton, Natalie Pauli. When she's coming back from church, I'd be there. I'd be nagging her with my problems, and she would very generously assist. So I went to write the paper. I did everything correctly, and then I submitted my script. I tell you, I was praying in between, asking God to help me. Then when the marks came out, I was not even confident to go check them. So they put the highest this side in a descending order. So it's highest, then when you get here, it's the guys that get zeros. So I was so demotivated, guys, that I started from the guys that got zeros. And I went up. Then I went past the guys that got 60s, past the guys that got 70s. I was like, okay, my script is not here. And there was only one A4 paper that was remaining that I didn't check. I was like, okay, I'm gonna go tell Professor Teigelstad that my script is not here. But something in me said, I must check the last script. So I started from the bottom and I went up, I checked 70, 80s, 90s, and right at the second person on the list was Sakumzi Langa with 92%. I couldn't believe it, guys. To me, I couldn't believe it, guys. To me, it seemed like God had cheated for me. Because I remember looking at the script and I was like, but God, how can you give me 92%? Professors will say I've cheated. How does a person get 28? How does a person get 28, 40, then 50, then all of a sudden 92%? But suffices as to say that when I was going for my June exam in English literature, my average was pushed significantly by the 92 to be somewhere between 66 and 68. So the point of the story is that there's nothing you cannot recover. Even when the semester seems to throw you over the edge, you can always hang with one or two fingers and crawl your way back in it. So guys, I had just passed my first year. I studied very hard for my first year, like I said, and I got 4 distinctions. Dean's Merit List status. And I knew that at that time, I had to spread my wings. We often say that second year is a time for you to experiment and see new things around university. So I applied for many things. One of the things I applied for was the Law Student Council. And I think that's how I got to know Wits. That's how I got to know that there are people that live in circumstances that I also lived in 20 or 15 years ago. 15 years ago, yeah. So I applied for the Wits Law Student Council, and I got to help many people. I remember people coming to the LSC office at very deep, dark hours of the night saying, I don't have a place to sleep. And you'd ask yourself that you are wearing very nice clothes during the day, and yet you don't have a place to sleep. So those are the people I assisted, and that's how I feel like my experience in the LSC really humbled me to be the person that I am today. But guys, I want to take you guys back at the very beginning of my address, where I failed my first interview in grade 2, because I didn't know what is your name and what is your surname, and tell you that I've been successful for all my 9 interviews at Wits University. And they've all been with very big law firms, very big bursaries, and very big scholarships. My first interview was with a firm called Ellen Gray. In my second year, I was applying for the Ellen Gray scholarship. And I want to tell you that I couldn't. Yeah. Guys, at that time, I want to tell you that back then, I didn't know English, so I failed my first interview. Then I was successful for my 9 interviews here at WITS, and the first one was with a law firm called Allen Gray. At that time, I had been successful for many of my interviews already. And I must tell you that for the Allen Gray bursary, I wasn't successful. And I want to take you through the story why I wasn't successful. When I applied, one of my friends I was applying with told me that, Sakumzi, the only reason you are getting all the scholarships, the only reason you are getting all the credit is because you are an orphan and you grew up in an orphanage home. Friends, bursaries only give you the money to study because they feel sorry for you. So I didn't know. I looked at him in the face and said, you know what? I won't tell them that I come from an orphanage home. I'm going to get inside there and I'm going to say my mother is a doctor and my father is a CEO of a bank. Then I'll get it before you. I looked at him in the face. Then he said, okay, let's go through. I got inside there. I didn't disclose that I'm from an orphanage home. Then when the results came out, I didn't make it. But the nice thing about the story is that he also didn't make it. Guys, I call this part of my life reaping the benefits of my hard work, because I believe that after all the pains and hardship that I went through between 1997 and 1999, between 2000 and 2010, growing up in an orphanage, all the doors seemed to open for me. I've been to 5 countries in 5 months, and I feel like the sky has been the limit, and it has all been through God. The first country I was in was England, through the courtesy of the A.B. Bailey bursary. It was a very difficult bursary to get because they only take 1 person per university, and the applications are open to 3rd years, 4th year, master students, PhD, and junior lecturers. At the time, I was doing my 3rd year, but I told myself that even though I failed my first interview 15 years ago, I'm going to fancy myself to get that opportunity. So I told myself that beyond everything, beyond my circumstances, I'm going to apply for the A.B. Bailey bursary and I'm going to get it. And I did apply for it. When I got to the interview panel, there were 5 professors. It was the most horrific interview of my life, but I managed to answer all the questions. And they called me during the June holiday saying that, Sakumzi, during December this year, you'll be in England, you'll be in Scotland. I was so excited. After that, guys, opportunities seemed to open. I applied for Law Without Walls, a law program, a 3-month course that I did with the University of Miami. It has given me the opportunity to tour, amongst others, Dubai, Switzerland, and America. And the connections I built from that were immense, guys, I tell you. But the point really, or the crux of my presentation today is that never count yourself out. People are going to write you off. People are going to say, Sakumzi, not part of the game. Sakumzi, we're not even including him. But if you trust yourself that you're going to make it, then you are going to make it in life. And I've got take-home points, guys. This has closed my presentation, but I just want you guys to take the couple of points home. That I didn't tell you this story so that you can feel sorry for me. I don't want that. If you feel sorry for me, please don't. I only told you this story, or I'm only sharing this story with you, so that you can see that no matter where you come from in life, you can be successful. It's not about the cars, it's not about the ties, it's not about your hairstyle, it's not about your hair. Once you sit in an exam, believe it or not, it's one man with a paper and a pen. And the only person who passes is the one who studied. So don't make excuses and say I'm failing because I didn't go to Crawford or Parktown. And guys, the amazing thing about God is that He's fair. I love our God really because He's fair. He gives everybody 2 legs, 2 arms, 2 eyes and 1 mouth so that we can have no excuse for failure. And guys, another thing you must understand is that the suffering you go through now is a preparatory. It's only meant to prepare you for the wonderful experiences you will enjoy in the future. And self-belief really will take you a long way. You just have to believe in yourself. You just have to tell yourself that you can do it. And I think for me, it has been a big credit of the reason I'm here today. I've always believed in myself. When people said, you are from an orphanage home, you lost your parents, you can't make it, I've always been very bold, and I stood there with my big head because I was a small boy, and I said, I can do it. Guys, and another thing, you must fight with everything you got. One of the greatest football coaches in America, Vincent Lombardi, says that if you can walk and smile properly and speak properly after a defeat, you probably didn't give it your best. So after a defeat, guys, you must be down so that people can see that you gave it your best. And I want to take you, I was the top student of Foundations of South African Law in my first year, Roman Law. That was the course that had the highest failure rate in vets. There were fourth years, third years, and second year students in my class. And I got the top student in it. And I remember every time after I've written a Roman Law exam, my entire arm would be painful, my neck would be painful. And that was because I had given it my best. And that's what you should do, you should give it your best. And in closing, guys, Jesus, in the book of John, chapter 4, verse 43, he says, people need miracles to believe. People need a purpose. People need to see something before they believe. And I'm urging you guys to believe in God because I'm that miracle. I don't know anyone else. I don't know of anyone before me who grew up in an orphanage home and has the successes that I have. And those are the distinguishing things about a miracle, something that has never been done before. I don't think there's anyone who has done what I've done. So under John chapter 4, verse 43, I think I am that miracle that people are looking for. I'm that guy people need to believe in God. And up to now, there are things that happened in my life that I cannot even explain. I mean, some of the things just happened automatically, and I only have God to thank for that. So guys, please, if I could do it from an orphanage home to touring 5 countries and having a 3-month course from the University of Miami at the age of 22, why can't you revolt your life? Why can't you own your life and be the best person ever? Thank you very much.
I attended Sakumzi's talk today and it was really inspiring, really motivating.
The lecture was really amazing. I've known Sakumzi since first year in that English class. He's such a real and inspirational person, and I think that it's so nice to come across people that you never know can inspire you in such a way in their daily lives. But this experience is really amazing and it's changed the way that I view him. He's an outstanding man, he's going places and he's just amazing. I absolutely love him, he's amazing.
Basically what I learned today is basically that one shouldn't give up. Wherever you come from, your background shouldn't really determine you.
Sakumzi is a man of depth, he's well-rounded, and I think it's a lesson to all of us that beyond just getting a certificate from WITS and getting the certification for the years that we spent here is a real education about impacting the places that we come from and making a marked difference.
It was good to hear today that you're never down and out, and that you can always come back from a failure to really be victorious and to overcome the things that seem to have overcome you.